Hey guys, my name is Hab, and this is the start of the M-VII-Yoh line. And dear god, does it just not impress at all. This is the M-VII-Yoh. It's the tier 7 heavy tank in the line, and while it has some potentially good things going for it, it tends to mar them with a lot of bad things as well. So let's take a closer look, shall we? Now, stock-wise, the stock gun that you just get is just very poor in general. You shouldn't even probably touch that one. It basically has the same issues as the Top Gun has, only exacerbated. It has a long reload time, poor DPM. Granted, I have 89% crew, but please give me some scrutiny as well. But you also have terrible dispersion and a terrible aiming time. The Top Gun relatively fixes some of those problems. The dispersion is better, albeit at 100% crew, it's still not fantastic, but the main killer of this entire gun is that aiming time. It is just so long. For context, let's just, let's take a meme one. The Smasher has a shorter aiming time, which is that is a little silly, don't you think? Then again, it is a Smasher. That entire thing is just silly. But the point here that I want to make, just put across, the reload time is fine for a 105mm. You do have that damage output. You still have decent gun depression, but it's gonna be problematic for reasons I'll get to shortly. But you still have that just diabolically slow aiming time. Before you get any shot on target, you're probably gonna get hit, and you're probably gonna get penned. And why are you gonna get penned? Because the turret is bad. On paper, it looks quite good, and shape-wise, it also looks quite good. However, you have to keep in mind, while the sides are 110mm, at this point, you see this little bulge that I'm aiming at, basically basically all of these viewports. Yeah, that's where the side armor already begins. So, as if it wasn't enough, on the front, you have these relatively big and thick bulges that are an easy way to go through. The turret cupola isn't small either, and it's kind of simple to hit. And as if that wasn't enough, in the back you have your engine. Yeah, in the back of your turret, just like that. I do, I will admit, that is a genius way to implement an engine, but this entire tank is just not genius in Blitz. Plus, as if it wasn't enough, the hull, while it's kind of, let's say, pattern-esque, does have that similar cast hull, similar to an M46 or an M48 pattern. However, that hull is quite high up, let's just say. So this is the Yoh, this is the Black Prince, similar height. It is slightly similar. However, if we get a tier lower, this is the Black Prince. The KV2 is not much taller, and a lot of people know that the KV2 is a very tall and very easy to hit tank, so you're not basically giving yourself any chances of getting some proper steel wall bouncing in this thing. As if it wasn't enough, the hull is not good either. You do have a decent nominal value, however, you have to keep in mind that the front isn't a uniform angle. It is a cast hull, so there's gonna be some very weird and oblique shapes that are gonna have a different armor value from the rest of the upper plate, so let's just say that if you angle a little bit to improve that armor, this part is just gonna become way worse. Some of the other parts are gonna become way worse, plus you also have a massive lower plate, which isn't well armored. The side armor is awful and the rear armor is awful, but that's to be expected from an American heavy tank. The problem here, which I alluded to earlier, is that with 7 degrees of gun depression, which is still a respectable number, mind you, that's way better than any Chinese or Russian heavy that you're probably gonna get at this tier. Combined with the 7 degrees of gun depression and this relatively tall armor profile, you're still gonna struggle a lot to try and hide that hull. And when you hide that hull, excuse the messenger notification if you heard that, but if you hide the hull, the turret is kind of another weak point, just on itself, on its own. The cupola is big, as I mentioned earlier. The turret does not take well to just angling and wiggling and jiggling, because that's gonna produce way, way easier penetrations. And as if it wasn't enough, you don't even have an accurate gun. So, is there anything redeeming about this tank? Kind of. Kind of. You do have a very, very, very powerful top engine. You can get this thing over 1000 horsepower, and while your top speed is limited to 35, this means that you have a relatively good hull traverse rate for a tier 7 heavy, or just a heavy tank in general, and you have a very good power to weight ratio. Even though this thing weighs like 64 tons, 16.5 horsepower per ton is pretty solid. You can get this thing to like 40 degrees on the hull easily. So that's pretty much one of the only redeeming factors that this thing has. However, well, let's say my stats in it aren't great either. I'm gonna be happy once I'll get rid of this thing. I could skip all the way to basically the tier 9. However, looking at the tier 9 modules, I decided to keep all of that free XP for when the time comes. The inevitable pain of playing a tier 9 tank. In this meta, I do love tier 9, but that's a side note, and that's an entirely different topic that I'm not gonna get into. So, let's try a battle, shall we? Maybe it's not gonna be as short as the CS52 one, but yeah, who knows, I maybe just jinxed it. It's taking a while to get matched up, so before we load in, let me just talk about the cons and the pros. Well, there's not many pros. The pros are that against tier 6 tanks in general, this armor profile should hold. The mobility for a heavy tank this heavy is also quite solid. It gets to its top speed very easily, and it manages to traverse relatively easily as well. However, outside, having pretty good penetration, a decent damage output, the reload isn't fantastic, but it's still quite decent. And other than that, that's pretty much where the pros end. Your armor profile is unreliable past anything that's, like, not tier 6. You can't side scrape in this tank either, because your nominal side armor value is just so poor. The gun is inaccurate, and that armor profile is kind of big. So, if you were to ask me if the M-VII-Yoh is worth keeping, I would definitely say no. I'm not quite sure about the tier 8 one. Some people told me that it is an improvement, but it is still quite average, so my expectations, as always, are very, very low. Now, I've been spotted, which is a problem, as we don't exactly have any spotters. There's a dog. There's just our dog going wild in the background, probably over a tractor or something. Just, if you hear that, just feel free to ignore it. Anyways, we do have a complicated team setup right now, with the STRV just probably being there kind of alone. And I need to... Oh there. I need to delete tanks fast. That's a very nice and beefy hit. That Helsing already just lost a third of his hit points. When this gun hits, it hits hard, which is thankfully one of the pros of this tank. Now let's see if we can get an easy shot on the grave. We probably can't, which is mildly problematic, let's say. We have already lost 2 tanks, so we're not doing well. That's the Helsing. Amorak's dead. And that's bounce. 160? That's the E25. Not good. I know that the Helsing is just a very, very powerful tank destroyer, but even a Yoh should hold up to some scrutiny. That's a fantastic hit, though. I'll give it that. Maybe we're gonna have the opportunity to sneak in a HE shot on the Helsing. I don't wanna peek, but I may not have any other option left soon. That's a beefy, beefy punch towards that E25. We need all of the advantages that we can get right now. The battle is still undecided. So, Helsing seems to be just backing away from a position where he can do anything, so let's try and neutralize him immediately. Oh, okay. Wow, Jesus Christ, you work fast. But I think that's where my contribution to this battle is probably gonna end. It seems that the Helsing is already gone. Yep, he's already up. Unfortunately for the Helsing, I do have a lot of elevation, so if he decides to go over the bridge, yep, pretty much. There we go. Unfortunately, we still have to kill a Black Prince, and that FV is just not gonna be able to do that. I think that's where my contributions end as well, so this is probably gonna be a loss. Ooh, yep. Yep, I'm done. Excuse me for a moment while I gather my thoughts. Anyways, I had to go outside for that because my room right now, because it's a very, very sunny June, and even though I live under a mountain range, is very, very hot and humid. So I had to go outside to be able to think a little, as my brain is currently running in complete overdrive. So, as for the pros, I have already mentioned those, and as for the cons, I believe I have said those as well. That is an unfortunate shot for the SU-100. But that is gonna be it from me in these impressions. I don't think the Yo is a good tank. In fact, I think it's quite mediocre at best. Just bad, usually. We did a lot of damage in this battle, but that was mostly just due to being lucky with my hits. Anyways, that is gonna be it from me. My name is Hab. If you somehow liked this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, whatever, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.